Passion Harvest. Hello, passionate listeners. Welcome to Passion Harvest. We aim to inspire you to live a passionate life. My guest today is Tayria Ward, who is a doctor of depth psychology specializing in dream analysis. This is going to be exciting, as well as helping individuals to understand the issues and dilemmas of their inner and outer lives through a depth psychological perspective. Tayria has been a student and a teacher of Carl Jung's work, as well as Indigenous ways of knowing for nearly 30 years. Tayria established Bridging Worlds, a mountain retreat center. She also teaches online courses, leads retreats and vision quests, and conducts monthly free Global Dream Symposiums. This is her story and this is her passion, and I'm so excited to have her on the show. Welcome, Tayria, to Passion Harvest.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Louisa. It's just so lovely to meet you and to meet your guests. Even though I don't get to see you, I can feel you.
Yes. This is a subject that absolutely fascinates me. And I guess it's out of body experiences, so many words for it, but dreams. Why do we dream is the big question.
Well, it is a big question. And the thing that I love about dreams is that everybody dreams. Animals dream. Everybody on every continent dreams. It's something that we all have so in common. And I think basically everyone is fascinated by their dreams. And generally people intuit, even though science, sort of modernity science tries to say it's just the brain working a few kinks out, at night, that there's no real meaning to the dream. I think basically everyone intuits there's power and meaning and purpose to our dream life. And for millennia and ancient times, everyone has known about dreams. All of our myths and scriptures, most of the activity in all the scriptures are guided by the prophets and the seers and just the people in the stories having dreams that moved their lives in significant ways. And if we pay attention to our dreams, those dreams are waiting there to guide us in such significant ways. I've lived by my dreams since I was 24. And I'm 68 now, so I won't even try to do the math on that. But that's
still young.
Yes, right. So I've lived by my dreams my whole life, and they inform me on a daily, weekly basis about what I need to know about what's going on in my life. What are the undercurrents? What are the things that are trying to work themselves out? What are the things that I should maybe try to correct or focus on a little differently? The source of dreams is mysterious. It seems to be that dreams come from some unknown something people would call the great mind or God or angels, ancestors, our own higher self. I actually love that you're from Australia, because I feel like I learned from the Australian Aborigines. Their concept of the dream time is when I learned about that, that's when it all came open to me. It's like, yes, this is a dimension of reality that we all inhabit. And I remember hearing that the Aborigines said that they feel that the Western person has gone insane because we only dream at night, whereas they can go in and out of the dream time while awake and at all times, whenever they want to. They can go in and out of this dimension of our reality and of our own nature and being. And the fact that Western people have marginalized the dreaming and the experience of the dream time to just sleeping at night has, we have lost a lot of connection to the truth and the wisdom of our nature and of the nature of the world and the cosmos. So there's not a short answer for you.
No, that's a beautiful way to express it. So the dream, when we dream, it's not obviously you said that, but I just want to clarify, it's not our subconscious mind giving us messages, or it is, and potentially other sources of information from other sources when we're dreaming.
No, that's a really lovely question. There's so many layers and levels to the dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the unconscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious that is giving us information, meaning, maybe repressed material, things that we've forgotten that we would do well to remember. Um, so it can be from that deep unconscious source. It can be from the higher unconscious, that self that is in touch with the whole cosmic reality. It can be coming from maybe an ancestor, or a source that one would consider another being that is also communicating or instructing us in the night.
It's so funny. Yesterday, you talked about animals dreaming. My dog, I was sitting on the balcony yesterday and the dog was sleeping, but I knew it was dreaming because it was almost barking or whimpering in its dream. And I thought, do I wake her up or not?
Well, my dog used to run in his sleep. I could see his going like this, and just I was having some really phenomenal dreams. I could always see him dreaming. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this happens to me sometimes. I'm just speaking because obviously I can only speak from personal experience. I am working on it, but I don't remember, or I don't feel that I dream all the time. Obviously, you're saying we dream every night and all the time.
Yes, I mean, scientists who test the brain waves will say that yes, we dream in cycles every night. Probably most of the dreams that we have, we don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of dreaming going on. I think most people are somewhat aware when they wake up, there's a lot of dreaming going on, and occasionally we just get a snippet of it. Usually when we have a dream, we're kind of aware that it's just a piece of maybe a longer narrative that was happening. Learning to remember dreams can be like a muscle that you create, sort of an artery that you're opening between your dreaming mind and your waking mind. So if you put a pad and pen next to your bed, make an intention when you're going to sleep, tell your dreaming mind you want to remember, and then write down when you wake up, or sometimes I do it just even in the dark when I roll over, just a few images from the dream that will help me pull it back in the morning. But if you continue to do that, no matter what little thing you get, it can start to sort of open that artery. So your dreaming mind will start to be more accessible to you. In any case, for people who don't dream, life is a dream. Usually you wake up and your morning thoughts coming right out of your dreams. If you kind of stay with those.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and life is a dream. We're always dreaming. Whatever happens in our life, we can interpret in that sort of symbolic way. It's the synchronicities that happen in life certainly, I think, come from that same dimension as the dream time, the dream awareness, when things sort of magically come together in a synchronistic way. So even if people don't remember their dreams, getting in touch with dreaming and the dream time is still very possible. But remembering your dreams is something that I encourage everyone to begin to work with in as conscious a way as possible.
That's great. And I guess the question is, what is dream and what is reality? That's a whole nother episode probably. But what would be your tips for someone? Obviously you mentioned set an intention, but how can we remember our dreams more, or learn to dream more, or remember them?
Well, just to go back to what is dream and what is reality.
Yes, sorry. That was two questions.
I'm trying to think of Montaigne I think he was a French philosopher who said, we waking sleep and sleeping wake. Right. So it's almost like we're walking around in our sort of sleep world when we're awake, and when we go to sleep at night, that's when we're really awake. So there, that is a whole nother episode.
But it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, when we think about it, yeah. Sometimes it is until we go to sleep at night we know what's really going on. Yeah,
the unseen.
Yeah. What we know, but we can't find quite the images and words for yet that are offered to us in the dreaming. But to really try to develop a relationship with your dreaming, I would say start, as I said, put a pad and paper next to your bed. Start writing down absolutely anything that you can think of, even if it's only a mood, even if it's just a few colors or images, or the, like I said, the waking thought is often coming right out of the dream. And sometimes even just writing that down will help us pull back what was happening in the dream. So I would say just make an intentional effort to begin to record. And then also to record, sometimes when we're walking or driving, there are those thoughts that flash across the mind, those like flashes of insight. Those are coming most often from the same dimension or the same realm of our being. So if we write those down, I just keep a little pad and paper next to me in my car so I can write those down as they come, because those are like the dreaming mind offering me an insight. And sometimes if I don't write it down, I think I'll just write that down when I get in the house. It's gone, just like a dream is gone. It's like it was that sort of big and that sort of fragile. So those are the ways, just start writing it down, paying attention and regarding with some respect, even if you don't understand it. Just knowing it's speaking in a language of symbols, and the language has to be learned, and it can seem very foreign at first, but once you start learning it becomes much more clear.
That's going to segue me into dreaming analysis, but it reminds me, about a month ago, I think I woke up in the middle of the night and went to the toilet, and I had to write, there was a word, it was not a word in the English language. I don't even know what it was, but I had to write it down. And I thought, you know what, I'm too tired. I don't want to turn the light on. I'm not going to write it down, but I'm going to remember it. It was some strange word. I think it had 5 letters, and I had to write it down. I thought, I'm going to remember it in the morning. And I don't remember it.
Oh,
I'm kicking myself. I know, it was so important.
Oh, that's a shame. It's they do say it'll come back, but I don't find that that's always the case. Sometimes
no,
it's gone, and so we just set our intention to be a little more
write it down.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, I know I've just got to let it go.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
But that takes me into dream analysis. So obviously you're the dream expert. How do you analyze dreams for people or for yourself?
Well, my doctorate's in depth psychology, so I did learn a lot of Jungian methods for that, but those aren't the only methods that I have known or used. I was working with my own dreams for 20 years before I ever even heard of Carl Jung. So I'll mention, some Jungian techniques and some
Amazing.
other, but mostly in the Jungian work, they start with considering every person or event or aspect of the dream as a part of ourself. So if you dream of, say, an ex-boyfriend, generally you're dreaming about some aspect of yourself that maybe it was a self-image that you learned during that time of that relationship, or maybe it's something that some kind of impression you developed about how life is during, whatever period of life you were actually with that person. So often it's not about the person, it's about the aspect of ourselves that person is mirroring back to us or reflecting about us.
Because everything is a mirror.
Yes. And it's thinking of all the different aspects of the self. So dream of your mother, and it's how you've internalized just the archetype of mother, not necessarily your own personal mother. Although, generally, if you dream about your personal mother, there is some information there about that connection or relationship that is wanting to be clarified, by your dreaming mind. So you look, and, weather in a dream can be showing you your moods or something about your deeper psyche at the time. Freud would say that the dream is referencing something that happens within the 24 to 48 hours before or even after the dream, that it's something very current that's being shown to you, and it comes for purpose, for a reason. It's something you need to know, something you're not aware of that you need to know now. And so often if it's bringing up, like, why am I dreaming about my childhood home? Well, look at what happened in the 24, 48 hours before that, to see what has been triggered, some kind of memory or self-concept or something that was developed while you were in that childhood home that has been sort of activated, or that the dream is referencing about something in your current life. So it's not necessarily historic, it's current. And the dream is giving you a clue as to where you developed that impression in your life that you're working with right now. It can give a lot of insight into what's actually going on.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I would say, think of anything that shows up in your dream in order to work with your own dream and sort of your own personal analysis. Any aspect of the dream, see why you think it's coming to you now, what it means to you now. And if you're willing to work on it, really work on it, which I recommend, take some time to write down the impressions, the images, and kind of see what comes. And the more sort of effort or consciousness that we bring to it, the more we get the sort of medicine or the information or the insight out of it.
I love the word medicine. That's great. And people talk about symbols in dreams. So spiders or certain animals, they have reference to, or snakes reference to certain symbols. What do you think about that?
Well, as I said, there's so many layers to it, so
Yes.
It can be a personal reference, but a spider can be a mythological reference. In some cultures, grandmother spider is the one who created the whole world. It's that image of, out of the belly of the spider, she weaves the web of life. And so it could be mythologically working with some of these deep images that are in the collective psyche or the collective unconscious. That was one of Jung's contribution, is to know that we're connected, we're kind of plugged in to the collective unconscious, and mythic images, even scriptural references of a scripture we haven't even read yet, can be coming to us in our dreams because they're in the collective unconscious, and we are in that dimension where we can be picking up, just like a radio wave, some of the information that's in the collective unconscious. So often, a snake was one of the early symbols of the Great Mother. If you look at the ancient feminine, she's holding a snake in each hand, and it's because there's something about the snake whose body is always on the earth. She's really an earth creature, very psychic and intuitive. But if you have had experiences of fear of snakes, it could be reminding you of a certain fear. So you kind of have to look at it at any of the different levels and what it might be meaning to you personally.
I guess, yes, it could be meaning anything. It's such a personal thing. And again, if one dreams, you would relate it generally to what happened in the last 48 hours?
Well, something about that is coming up. So something about your connection maybe to it. If, for example, it's a fear, something is triggering that fear. It may be something that's happening in the workplace, or something you read in the news, or some maybe argument you had with someone, or something like that is triggering whatever that image is giving you a little more information about. Now, that's Freud's theory. I think it's a good place to start, a good place to look. I don't necessarily think that anything is across the board always true. So, it could be coming from a whole other dimension of our being that is sort of beyond time and space. So,
yeah, fascinating. And I do get what you mean by dimension, but would you mind just explaining what you mean by other dimensions when we're dreaming?
Well, that's really a good question. To me, in my sense of how things are, this material world, the physical world that we can see is just one dimension of reality. There's the energetic dimension, there's invisible dimensions. If one believes in ancestors or angels or spirits of any kind, those live in a different dimension than the one that we can actually see and smell and touch. Buckminster Fuller, who's a great philosopher and scientist, said that 99.9% of anything that's affecting us at any given moment can't be seen or smelled or touched. That 99.
I love that. That's amazing.
There's so much in the invisible realm, and the dreams are real clues to what's affecting us that's in the invisible realm, and it's our way of picking up the information. It's available to us. And if we focus on just what can be seen and touched and smelled with our five senses, we're missing out on 99.9% of reality, according to that theory, you know. So if we stay just with that, we've got a pretty limited idea of what's true, what's so. So
I love that quote. So, I mean, what it sounds like to me, it's almost so when we sleep, our physical body is resting, but our sort of egoic mind moves to the side, and we're allowed to open up to these realms of possibilities with our subconscious.
Yes. I mean, one of my early dream teachers, my earliest dream teacher, who was, like I said, years before I ever learned about Jung. So I don't know if Jung would have said what I'm about to say, but she said that we actually leave our bodies and inhabit these other dimensions, these invisible dimensions, and that we're connected to our bodies through what is called a silver cord. And you can find those references even in a lot of the mythologies and in the Christian Bible and that sort of thing, that we're connected to our bodies through a silver cord, but that we can leave our bodies when we sleep. And that's when, I mean, I've had my sister in India see me just walk in a room. And, you know, if that is actually true, I would say probably I was sleeping and she saw my subtle body that had left my physical body behind. And there I am. I'm someplace else.
That to me would be termed as astral projection.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I don't know. Is that correct? Is that?
I don't know that much about astral projection. I've never studied it. I know the reference to it, and I would say that's probably true. What I'm talking about is what they would call that. And people can do that while they're awake, but I think that we also while we're asleep, we're having experiences in these other dimensions that sometimes we remember when we get back into our waking body, and sometimes we don't.
And then I guess the other terminology, which is used very often, is lucid dreaming.
Yes.
Which, from what I understand, is you're able to be, to an extent, conscious in the dream or direct the dream. Is that correct? And do you practice that as well?
No, I don't. I know of those who have, and I have respect for those who have. But one thing that has called me away from it is I like to let the dream just be itself. I don't particularly want to get in there and start, messing with things or moving things around in the dream. But I know that there are reasons that people do that. Like if there's a fear that's coming to somebody in the night, they want to be able to wake up in the dream and address whatever it is and change that dream or interact with the energies or symbols or whatever it is in that dream life. And I know there's purpose to it. It's not a study of mine. It's something I originally had a little suspicion about because I feel like we want to control everything, and now we want to get in there and control the dreams too.
Yes.
But I have heard lectures and read a book on it that let me know that there is real purpose to it. So I don't want to say anything other than I respect it and don't know a lot about it. I know sometimes I am aware in the dream that I am dreaming, and I kind of talk to my waking mind in the dream. I'm saying, do you see this? I'm dreaming now, but so it does happen spontaneously sometimes without, just without trying. Yeah.
So do you dream every night?
No, I don't. But I would say.
Well, sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you would dream, but you don't remember. Let me rephrase that question.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. Do I remember my dreams every night? No. I guess probably you're right. We do dream every night. I think that's understood. But probably 2 or 3 times a week, I wake up with a dream that I write down. And I would say it enriches my understanding of life and the world and myself consistently. There's almost never anything that feels pointless about this dream. Sometimes it's something that I just don't have time or attention to work with as much as I wish I could.
Yeah.
But sometimes it really affects how I see myself in my day very much.
So can I ask, is there a most vivid dream that really was profoundly changed your life or had some impact on your life?
Oh gosh, there are a lot of them, but I'll just tell you
Okay.
the one that comes to mind. Um, I was living in Los Angeles. I'd been there for 30 years. And I came to a conference out here in Western North Carolina, where I live now, and started to consider. My youngest daughter was going off to college, and my marriage had ended, and so it was a time. And I was finishing my doctorate, and so it was a time when I really could change up my life.
Mm.
Whereas before that, with kids and marriage and all that, I couldn't have. So I was considering moving out here and starting a retreat center out here in the mountains. And I wasn't sure. I was very drawn to these beautiful mountains. These are the oldest mountains in the world. And I wasn't sure if that was a good idea for me or not. So I was considering that. I had this dream where I was driving down the freeway that I always drove to work for years and years in Los Angeles. I was down the freeway, and these crows came and surrounded my truck. I was driving a truck, which I don't normally do, and they redirected my truck over to the foot of these mountains, and stopped. I stopped at the foot of the mountains, and I got out. And the crows had become guides in my dreams in a beautiful way. So I knew they were guiding me, and I looked up and I could see inside this mountain. And the mountain happened to be shaped like an eagle, and I've been having eagle dreams too. So all the symbols were quite, sort of intimate to me. I saw inside the mountain some people that had these beautiful sconces on the wall and these tapestries on the wall. And I heard the words that they were, and they had mirrors that were set up so that they were mirroring the interior of the mountain out into the world. And I heard the words that this is a calling, like a monk or a nun or any sort of great sacred calling. This is a calling to go to where you can reflect out into the world, the interior of the mountains. That dream gave me all the courage I needed to move from Los Angeles to the mountains of North Carolina all by myself.
What a beautiful message.
Yeah, I mean, the dream was hard to ignore. It was like, okay, I'm going to accept the calling. I get it. There's something about that, and it still sort of informs me every day. It's like that was a sort of an original dream that I feel like I'm still doing that work of reflecting the interior of the earth, mountains, out into the world.
Yeah, I'm sure myself or anyone that's listening has certain, profound dreams in their life that are hyperreal, that mean something to them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of one of mine, and I think also the hyperreal ones, you understand, they're so clear. So for example, I think I was, moving away from my husband and, had a lot of changes in my life. And I remember being at the bottom of a hill, and I looked up and there was a snake coming towards me.
Oh.
And I started to run. Obviously I was scared, but I started to run away from the snake, and it got faster, and the snake's fast. I kept running, and I realized the only thing I could do is turn around and face the snake.
Mm-hmm.
And it stopped and slithered away eventually. I mean, I was nearly dying by this stage, but until I turned around and faced the fear,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I needed. I needed to know that, obviously I was going through a very fearful experience, but I really had to turn around and face it head on to move forward. I couldn't keep running.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those hyperreal, very profound dreams. And it was like an aha moment that I still remember. And that was many years ago. Well, not that long ago, but
I mean, that's really ancient universal wisdom, isn't it? To just stop running away from the fear and turn around and face it, and everything changes then.
Yeah. And even though it was still coming towards me, it stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that was a good one for me.
yeah, that's excellent. That's a beautiful dream. Yeah.
And I know, as before we started the show, you mentioned that some people had met you in their dreams, or you had met other people who you hadn't met in our waking state.
Right.
Does that happen often?
I think it happens more often than we know. I've had it times when I know it, when we realize it, that we had a dream about each other, and that we had met in a dream, and that's why we have recognized each other in our waking life. But those times when you meet somebody, it's like, how do I know you? I mean, you and I were even saying that. You said when we
Yes.
got on, it's like, I think I know you. How do we know each other? And potentially we've had these dreams, who knows? But sometimes I think that is a way to explain how you meet somebody and you have known them before. And possibly, there are lots of ways to describe or explain that. But one of them could be because you have been in the same, you had experiences together in the dream time. And then you see, and it's like, oh, I know you. That happens probably more often than we are willing to just really
Yeah.
admit.
That's so true. I saw your photo and I thought, I mean, obviously not that I know if we've met, but
Uh-huh,
I just thought I really know you. And
uh-huh.
maybe it's been in a dream somewhere, or you can meet people at a party or at an event, and you're naturally drawn to them. You feel comfortable with them. So that's probably potentially we've met them in the dream state or in other lives. I mean, that's another episode as well. But
Right.
maybe in the dream state, I guess when we feel really comfortable with someone who we haven't met before. Well, while we're in our waking state.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had mentioned to you, there's somebody in Australia who we had a phone conversation. I was doing some dream work
Yes.
with this person, and we've exchanged some emails and started to realize we knew each other in this strange, sort of very familiar way. And then he told me of a dream that he had. He described coming to my house out on the mountain, described the woman who was standing on the porch, described the view, and the woman that was standing on the porch fit the description of my daughter.
Wow.
And there were things he knew about my porch and the setup and the view that he couldn't have known. I mean, I had no pictures, that he'd seen.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd been there, and he just recognized, oh yeah, that's your house.
How
Isn't that
amazing.
interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that's telling us something.
it is. I mean, it goes back to the 99.9% of everything that happens outside
Yeah,
of this
I will
body.
send that quote to you, Louisa, because
Oh, I
it's
love
wonderful.
that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Um,
So I just wanted to briefly touch on your spiritual mentorship, which sounds fascinating. What does that entail?
well, a lot of times it's people who are coming to me because they feel like they're on a special spiritual sort of quest
Mm-hmm.
or journey, and which is somewhat distinguishable from coming to me for uh, any kind of psychological counseling or an analysis in that sort of
Mm-hmm.
sense. So sometimes people come because I have had a long life of working with, I was 20 years a minister in an interfaith organization where I studied the religions of the world and all the scriptures of the world. And
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
yeah, that was the early part of my
Wow.
career in life. I was a minister and very, very interested in learning about all the religions of the world.
Mm.
And then went into, because dreams stood out to me so much in midlife, I sort of changed my career and I went and got a PhD in depth psychology and studied dream analysis. And then I worked with indigenous elders and shamans from all over the world in a variety of different places and circumstances
Mm-hmm.
to learn the indigenous ways of knowing. So I have a lot of experience to sort of help people who are on different spiritual paths who don't have a lot of support in their life for what they're doing. They're intuiting it or reading about it or have met someone or something that's sort of set them on this path, and they need just to be able to talk about it, a little guidance and support. And so I work with people on Skype or Zoom
Mm-hmm.
or in person if they happen to be in the Asheville area. So I work with a lot of people, just helping support them on their quest, listening to their dreams, because their dreams are always telling them what their soul spirit needs to know, as well as, what are the practical events in our lives that need to be discovered through the dream as well. So
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean that's great, but I'm also thinking it's such a global world now with Skype and Zoom, and you I can be in Australia and you can be in America, and we're having this wonderful conversation.
Yeah, and developing real friendships. You know,
Yeah.
it's really wonderful that we have this now. Buckminster Fuller, he was a mentor of mine too. He said way back before internet was ever developed, he prophesied that there will be ways that we would know each other all over the planet, and we'll be able to discuss things and be right in the moment in touch with each other all over the planet. He saw it coming. He was a scientist, but a prophet in that way. And who would have imagined? And now I'm seeing it, and I said, Bucky knew. He didn't know yet how it was going to show up, but
Fantastic.
Here we are. Yeah.
And I just want to briefly touch on, you mentioned oracle cards. I was having a little look on your website. How does that affect your life, or how does that enrich your life, and why do you use them?
I was guided in a dream, Louisa. I would have never really thought of it. I never knew anything about them. I never had any prejudice against them. I just never knew anything about them. And I had a dream.
Of course you did.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I would trust it. Yeah. There was a woman in the dream who gave me this big, heavy gold coin, and I knew it to be extremely valuable. And in the dream, her name was Angelus Arian. And I never heard of such a person, so I didn't know that was a real person, but I wrote it in my dream journal. Well, within the week, I found on a bookshelf, it was meant to be one of those synchronicities, a book by a woman named Angelus Arian.
Wow.
And the name of the book was the Tarot Handbook. So, of course, because of the dream and the value of the gold piece and her name being exactly even as I had spelled it in my dream journal, I bought it. And so that book, she was Jungian too, that helped because I was working on my doctorate at the time. So kind of helped that she was speaking a language that I understood.
Yeah.
She was an anthropologist. So I started studying the dream, and I started pulling cards every morning, and they gave me so much insight into the sort of movement, the psychic and spiritual movement of my day in a way that nothing else could. It's like a dream. It's coming from the same dimension of information, where working with the oracle can give you that guidance. And as it turned out, I had learned, how to work with the tarot before my marriage sort of tragically came undone. And I, with it, kind of came undone. And it was working with those cards every day that really helped me know how to put one foot in front of another, how to think about this, how to respond to that. They were so practical and useful, and they made me realize somebody knows what's going on in my life. I feel completely lost and confused, but this is like showing up in this really practical, insightful way. So they can be really helpful working with an oracle deck, or their runes. They have tea leaves. There's so many ways to get what the voice of the oracle is, and every culture has had their ways. It's an ancient art and a sort of a people's folk art. The churches eradicated it because they wanted you to tithe to the priests and only have what the priests knew. They didn't want you to have your own connection to the divine mind. So I think that's where they got denigrated, but people have used them since the beginning of time, and it's quite an available way to get information and insight.
I love that. Yeah. And I love that it provided you such comfort and clarity.
Oh, it did.
That's what it's about.
Exactly. I mean, it really gave me insight, and it's like, wow, somebody knew this was going to happen today. It was always surprising. It's like, I'm not as alone and lost as I felt. It's like, wow, there's really a lot of support in this sort of invisible realm that has got it. It's got my back.
That's great.
Yeah.
So in the essence of time, and as we come to a close, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, ask me whatever your last question might be.
I always like to ask, since this is a show about passion, if someone's looking to follow your passion, which you have done, and you moved across the country, if someone's looking to follow their passion, what would you recommend? Or what's your advice?
Well, there's that oft quoted, I'm sure you're aware of it, Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss.
Oh, I love it.
a lot because there are people who don't understand what he meant by that. But I think if you have libido, energy for it, that's your deep soul saying, go that direction, move in this way, move toward that. And if you don't, if it's something that just sort of leaves you cold or leaves you dry, then generally that's your guidance as well. So I think follow your passion. And sometimes it's just in the littlest steps, you know, it's that thing to just go to this event. Somehow I just feel energy for it. So I go, and then maybe I meet someone or learn something that helps me to the next step and to the next steps. You know, I think sometimes it's just one sort of breadcrumb in the forest at a time that our passion will lead us, you know, to pick up, and it brings us on our journey. So, you know, there's the big image, like move to North Carolina. And there are the smaller images that kind of guide us through our day and our week. That and if there's love and energy for it, then trust it, I would think.
That's a great answer, and it's so completely aligned with what I always say. You know, follow the breadcrumbs, and the universe will always support you if you follow your passions.
Yes, I really believe that. Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest, and for anyone that's listening or watching, all your details will be in the show notes. Thank you very, very much.
You're very
It's
welcome.
been a pleasure.
It's just a pleasure to meet you and your audience. So thank you for inviting me.
And I'm going to have a journal next to my bed, and I'm going to take one with I'm going to call it my dream journal. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. Often I say just a little pad and paper so you can scribble on it, and then write it in a nicer journal when you'd have time to write out the narrative. So it might be a two-step thing, you know, just the scribble pad as well as the nice journal.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.